Chapter 19 of What Ifs tonight. Just some fun things we're talking about that could happen this year, and if they did happen, may very well change the trajectory of a conference or several conferences. Confri, plural. Let's go with the first one here, and this is from Brandon. He said, whew, let me take a second and just marinate on this one. What if Miami throttles Texas A&M and is undefeated heading into the Clemson game? That's a pin dropper there. You heard it. Miami. So they play A&M in week 2. You didn't just say if they beat them, Brandon. You said, what if they throttle them? Well, we got a number on that game right now. So they are 7.5-point dogs at home against Texas A&M. Okay, so think about this for a second. So A&M goes in there, and they get their doors blown off against Miami. Well, the first thing I'd be asking is Texas A&M about to fall off the rails in this scenario? That would be its own show, not just a segment, a show. So leave that over there. Then we bring ourselves back up to the main road here. All right, now let's go back down further. He said they throttle A&M, and they're going to be undefeated when they play Clemson. Well, that also means Miami went and beat North Carolina on the road the week before they play Clemson. So that's a big conference opponent out of the way. It's a big out-of-conference opponent out of the way. And now they're going into, or they're playing Clemson at home. I forgot it. I thought they went on the road and played them. So, first off, big hype around a game that isn't being hyped right now, Miami-Clemson in that scenario. Secondly, that's a big ACC shakeup. And thirdly, check out the rest of that schedule. It gets tough in the second half. They would have Virginia, road games against NC State and Florida State, and Louisville, and then at Boston College. But that Florida State game, November 11th, no one's circling that nationally right now. I know every time you say that, the 1990s version of yourself winces when you say, oh, Miami, FSU, that's an afterthought. Blech. But it has been. Wouldn't be this year if that were to happen. Obviously, huge implications for Tyler Van Dyke. It probably means both of the coordinators worked out. Mario Cristobal would get like a 1,000,000-year extension on his contract. So, yeah, if this what if were to pan out, all these things would happen. And we would take a lot of credit for it on this show because we took a trip to Miami earlier this spring. And we're all about taking the credit and not taking the blame. Next up. This has never happened, Jesse tells me. Nelson said, what if no teams in the top 5 of the playoff odds actually make the playoff? It's never happened. In the history of odds to make the college football playoff, we've never had the top 5 go 0 for 5. So the top 5 currently to make the college football playoff: Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, and USC. All right. Now that you've got that in your head, in the SEC, if it's not Georgia or Alabama, you could see that. You could have LSU. You could have Tennessee. So it's certainly not likely, but it's possible. That wouldn't be the wildest thing in the world. In the Big Ten, you could just have Penn State or anyone in the West. Or you could also have a scenario in any of these conferences where a banged-up team with multiple losses already ends up winning the conference and they just don't make the playoff. That could happen. In the ACC, they don't have a top 5 right now, so any of them could make it, and that would be fine. Ditto in the Big 12. Like Texas could make it, that'd be fine. Are they taking other teams' spots? Is an undefeated Clemson or an undefeated Texas, are they taking other teams' spots? That could keep some of them out. The Pac-12, certainly, if USC doesn't make it in, you got like half a dozen other teams out there in the top of the conference and within the odds market at least. So this would be fun, but I'm calling that very unlikely. It's not a bold prediction segment, but it's very unlikely. But if any of those scenarios were to happen, like think about LSU coming out of the SEC. Think about Penn State coming out of the Big Ten. Just those alone, much less if they all happen back to back to back. Next up, thought we were done with these. A few years ago, we all thought we were done with a headline like this. Think about what Dom said. Dom said, what if a defensive-minded team wins the national title? Some would say it's already happened the last 2 years, Dom. So I looked at the S&P Plus defensively to start the year. So Bill Connolly's numbers, the projected best defenses to start the year. Iowa number 1, A&M number 2, Georgia number 2, Michigan 4, Kentucky 5. Go Cats. How about that? Are any of those teams going to win the title? Georgia certainly has the best shot. Michigan's got a really good shot. But you got Penn State, Wisconsin's up there, Bama's number 10. So there are some teams that would be in the conversation technically. But Dom's saying, what if one of them won the national title? Well, if Georgia won the title, it'd be a three-peat for them, so that's a big deal in its own right. If Bama won the title, you got to ask yourself, would they win the title as a defensive-minded team? I think defensive-minded when I think Iowa, and I do think that when I think Georgia too. Alabama, I think if they were to win it this year, would revert back a little bit more to that kind of identity. But Dom, on the whole, no matter which one of them did it, if a defensive-minded team won the title this year, it would continue the pendulum swing theory instead of the river theory. So there was a theory for a little while in the late teens that college football was not cyclical. It was not a pendulum back and forth, radical offense, radical defense. They just thought it was a river. And college football is flowing this way, and it's never coming back. Defense is never winning championships again. Well, maybe that was a little bit too hasty. And especially if we get a defensive-minded team winning the title this year. And for the sake of argument, what if it's not Georgia? What if it's another team? So we've seen Georgia do it 2 years in a row. What if it's another team? Now, here's the difference. Iowa has not been able to do anything offensively. That is truly a defensive-oriented team. Georgia was a great offense last year. It's just you don't associate it with them because they don't move the ball the same way USC with Caleb Williams does. That's not a bad thing. It means they don't have to. It also means they understand how to play complementary football where they don't have to score every drive. But that's my response there. It would just continue the pendulum theory over the river theory. Lastly, college football playoff talk once more. Mike wants to know, what if the Big 12 gets left out of the playoff? It'd be all about Texas, Mike. It'd be all about Texas. Anyone else out there gets left out of the playoff, you would look and say, I didn't expect them to make it anyway. Texas gets left out of the playoff, which is the line for them this year. I think achieving anything less than that, there is a large contingent amongst us that would consider it a failure. That's what they would say. Oh, Texas failed again. They could go 10-2. Texas failed again. I don't know that I'd feel that way, but what we'd also have to hear is a bunch of Big 12 hate, which was kind of, I don't know, it popped up last year and I didn't like it, and I probably wouldn't like it again this year. It's a product of the environment we've been in for a little while, the playoff environment, where the only way you can be a quality, fun conference to watch is if you got multiple playoff contenders, and I'm not going down that road. Some of you even get tired of me saying I'm not going down that road, so I'm not doing it. But I don't believe that. I had a bunch of fun watching the Big 12 last year. Pac-12 could eat each other alive this year. I'll have tons of fun watching them. And so if the Big 12 doesn't have a playoff team, but the overall style of play in the conference looks like it did last year, my what if is it could be really fun to watch. There are a lot of other folks out there who disagree with that. And they would say, oh, it's just a bunch of average football. Well, okay. That's fine. I like all of it. Like, I watch all of the sports. So that's never really bothered me.